Hello and welcome to our live Q&A on summer pet travel. Today I will be hosting Georgiana, the marketing manager at Starwood Pet Travel, and also on today's live stream we have Ryan Bull, director of pet travel coordinators at Starwood. I'll give Ryan a moment to introduce herself to the audience.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm Ryan. I'm based out of Colorado. I've been working here for about 8 years, and I manage all of our coordinators for all the different countries here at Starwood. I also have a set of clients myself. We focus on Asia and Hawaii. So I'm looking forward to answer any questions you have about summer pet travel.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that intro. So today
Yeah.
we will also be giving away some goodies for today's live stream, including a Starwood Pet Travel pet bandana, a $20 Amazon gift card, and $200 off a Starwood booking. To enter, all you have to do is ask a question in the chat. Follow Starwood Pet Travel on any of our social media channels, which include LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I also think we just recently launched on X. So follow us on any one of those channels to enter. And then in the chat, we will be dropping a form shortly just so we have your contact info so we can reach you after the event and let you know if you've won. So a bit about Starwood and why pet parents trust Starwood for summer moves. So obviously the summer months are a bit more complex just due to summer heat, and we find that a lot of families do tend to want to move in the summer. It works with schedules, especially around school schedules, but overall, we are specialists in complex international summer pet relocations. We've helped over 10,000 pets move safely all around the world, including during the peak summer season. We are experts, especially Ryan, at helping clients navigate airline heat embargoes and seasonal restrictions. And we understand that, some of this information is new to pet parents that are looking to either move this summer or summers to come. We do specialize also in door-to-door coordination. So, if it's something that interests you, we can pick your pet up from its home, take it to the airport. It arrives at its new destination at your new location, and we can also transport it to your new home as well. And Ryan on the team who leads our pet travel coordinator team, they'll keep you updated every step of the way with real-time updates. We also have a pretty robust pet travel portal that helps with all of your documentation, tracking, and vet visits, and anything else that you would need to stay informed of for your pet's move. In relation to pet travel in the summer, there's a lot of questions that we do see arise, including heat embargoes and airline restrictions, timing your move before school starts. Every pet move is different, especially depending on where you're moving to, whether from the US to Australia or another country in Europe. Every destination has different requirements and timelines, so it's really important to coordinate that the best that you can. Also, cargo travel and hot weather. So we get a lot of questions about, is my pet safe in the cargo hold? What does that entail? Also cost. Cost is a huge factor of any move, right? So like moving on in itself is very costly. So you want to make sure that you can budget accordingly for your pet's move as well. And we also see that there's a lot of pugs and French bulldogs and English bulldogs, other breed restrictions during the summer. So we see a lot of questions arise about that. So just kind of to get your wheels turning and how you may want to think about your upcoming summer move. All right, and with that, we are going to open our live Q&A. So please start dropping your questions in the comments and we'll be happy to address them as they come in.
And you might see my dog Slate jump in and out of the frame. He just kind of wants to be part of today. So
Yeah, at Starwood, we are all pet lovers. I usually have a cat either on my lap or in his little desk bed. I don't think you can see it in the view here, but yeah, we're all pet lovers. I think you saw the pictures of me and Ryan both with our pets, so we definitely prioritize pet safety and just love of animals in general. We
Absolutely.
also are simultaneously live streaming to a couple of different channels. So if you're joining from YouTube or another channel, you might not see a comment come through if it didn't come through the channel that you joined specifically. Okay, so we had one just come through. Uh, why can't I move my pug in the summer? So Ryan, I'm going to pass that one to you about why
Yeah,
there are
so
restrictions.
yeah, so pugs, bulldogs, any flat face, snub nose, or Brockie breed are not allowed to travel in the summer. We impose an internal embargo just to ensure that this doesn't slip through the cracks. So from May to October, kind of depending on the city, we might be a little more lenient. Um, but we don't allow pets to travel because airlines, big airlines like Lufthansa, domestic airlines, will just not accept pets in the summer. So we don't want to give any false pretenses when we're on a sales call and say, hey, yeah, your pug can travel in July, when in fact no airlines will take them, and it is very dangerous for a snub nose breeze based on their respiratory structure. They tend to overheat a lot quicker than any other pets.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, obviously pet safety is top of mind for us as well as the pet parent themselves. We don't want to like take any unnecessary risks, whether it's, something that's a restriction on Starwood's end or the airline itself. But I mean, it does come down to the airline mostly, I would say, but really it comes down to pet safety. Okay. So we have a question from BS5064. When it's summer, do different airlines have different precautions for pets in cargo hold?
I will say certain stations like JFK or LAX and different airlines do take different precautions in terms of air conditioned vans and highly air conditioned areas where pets are before they actually get on the flight. But that is why they do embargo, is because some of these stations don't have the air conditioned vans, they don't have the proper setup and spacing for ventilation, so that's why they just don't move pets in the summer out of very hot locations just for pet safety. Um, in terms of precautions, I mean, I will say the pilot will go down to the cargo bay and what we call manifest the cargo. That means they look at every pet, make sure they have enough water. We do recommend freezing a water bowl so that it's ice so it remains cold. So the pilot will flag anything he sees when he actually checks out the cargo hold. They do make sure that the air conditioning in the cargo matches that of the cabin. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously in summer it's going to lean on the cooler side versus in the winter it might lean on the warmer side. But the pilot controls all of that, and usually it's between like 65 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit to match the cabin pressure or the
Okay.
cabin temperature.
Oh, nice. I think that freezing a water bowl tip is actually extremely helpful. It probably, helps your pet traveling just cool down, apart from all of the, requirements from the cargo hold with that 65 to 70-degree temperature. So BS5064, I hope that helps answer your question. And if you have a follow-up, please let us know in the chat. Okay,
Yeah,
we have one from Candlelight517 about door-to-door pet travel. Is it an extra cost? And I can actually help, start to answer this one. So at Starwood specifically, we offer different tiers of service, economy, business, and premium. So similar to how a human would travel via air. Our business option, which is the most frequently opted into, I believe does include door-to-door transport. Ryan, you might have a bit more information about that, but that is our most frequently used service, which I believe includes that option.
yeah. So just to explain that a little further, we'll do our quotes based on how close you are to the airport. So if it's something where 2.5 hours away, it would be a little bit additional cost that we would add on to that package. But we can right size what you need pretty easily. We can do long ground transportation hauls if you need to get to a different airport. So we can be very flexible in terms of collection to delivery, or if you want to be with your pet as much as possible, we often meet people at the airport at a designated area. And then on the delivery side, instead of doing a delivery, if you want to see your pet right off the flight, we'll meet you after customs clearance near that destination airport.
Yeah. And, I think it's really nice that we are able to sort of tailor quotes to what really suits the pet parent's need at that time.
Yeah, yeah. I know they're juggling a lot between their own move and if they
Mm.
have children and their schedules. So we try to work around whatever is best for our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving is stressful enough. I've done a few of those, even just continentally, and it's extremely stressful. So moving across the world is even more so. Okay, we have a question from S Pete 54. We have a large GSD mix, 32-inch high at the tip of the ears, and we have to ship her in a PP100 size crate. Does this mean air cargo only on all airlines? Is air cargo safe in summer months?
Yeah, so it sounds like with the PP100, it could only fly in cargo. It really depends on the destination. There are certain options that are only cargo flights so that pets are in the cabin area. There's not many I know of, specifically to Hawaii, that is an option. But I would say 9 times out of 10, that would be a crate and a pup that would go in the cargo hold. Um, at least from our perspective, we only work with vetted airlines that we've worked with for many years, so we know their procedures. We trust the airline and their cargo agents that do the actual handling off the tarmac during the loading process. Um, but but if you were to do your own research, I would just recommend calling the airlines directly and hearing from them, because there's a lot of cases where people buy a ticket or they buy their pet a ticket as excess baggage, so it's kind of all tied to your ticket, and then they get to the airport and it turns out the plane isn't big enough for that crate. They don't actually service pets, and so when you're going online, it could be a little confusing. So that's why a lot of people use our services, because we've worked with these airlines for years and we know the routine, we know all the documentation needed, and most importantly, we know the airlines that we trust and that are safe and handle everything to
Mm-hmm.
protocol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I can't imagine going through that process for the first time and like navigating crate requirements and which airlines can actually, you know, facilitate my dog's travel. So, here at Starwood, we definitely help cut out the middleman, if you will, and try to
Yeah,
make sure, well, make sure with the most certainty we can that your pet will travel safely in the right crate size as well. And we
yeah,
actually do have a kennel sizing kit that we send to all of our clients to help them, you know, measure their dog and make sure that they are in the right kennel proportionate to their animal. Okay, we
yeah.
have one from Handmade Built. Are American Pit Bull Terriers considered snub-nosed for Starwood?
So those are a little on the fence categorically. They are snub nosed. But if it's a mix and it has a longer snout, we can make an exception for our internal embargo, as long as the airline will accept a pit bull. An airline like Lufthansa will, or KLM. They just have certain kennel requirements. Um, so yeah, to answer your question, during summer we kind of take breeds that are on the fence, just via photo and full body image, just so we can make our best decision from there.
Okay. All right, another question from Candlelight 517. Is there a weight restriction for dogs?
I would say no. Really depends on the routing you're taking and the airline. I have not encountered where there's a weight restriction unless it's a domestic flight. But most domestic flights don't accept pets in a certain style kennel. Like for example, that PP100 wouldn't be able to fly domestically. They usually take only up to a certain size. But yeah, to answer your question, I don't think weight is an issue. But if you're traveling with three other pets that are all large, it might be an issue getting them all on the same flight, on the same reservation. So in that case, we would split up the moves.
Okay,
So
we
it's a
have.
very like specific question.
Yeah. No, we like specific questions. I think, every pet parent situation is very unique. So, um, we're happy to answer them now. And if you have more questions after this live stream ends, you can always email us too.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a question from RD underscore calligraphy. I like that username. Hi,
Yeah.
Hi, with the new EU changes on commercial pets, is it still the case that we have to travel on the same flight or they are considered commercial pets? If so, what is the procedure now?
Yeah, I can explain that. And like the calligraphy um, listener indicated, it is a brand new rule starting end of May, beginning of June. So basically, the difference between a commercial move and a non-commercial move is reliant on when the pet owner is traveling. Um, and so, how it used to be is if the pet owner is traveling within 5 days of a pet, it's a non commercial move and the health certificate's valid for 10 days. If the owner's not traveling at all, it's commercial move, certificate's valid for 2 days. So, the rules changed in that now calligraphy is right. You do have to be on the exact same routing as your pet, the exact same flight, flight number too, if you want to have a non-commercial certificate. The benefits of that is it has the validity of the health certificate, usually being 10 days, kind of depends on your destination. Sometimes it's 7. But that just allows the USDA more days to endorse. If the flight's canceled, doesn't necessarily mean your health certificate's invalid and you can try for a different day. But the downside to that is usually pet owners do not want to go through a long layover there's a connecting flight. And that was usually what happens when a pet has a certain routing. They do a rest stop in like Frankfurt or Amsterdam, and then they go on to their final destination. And we find that that's a little hard for pet owners to be on that same schedule. So most moves are coming in as commercial to the EU. This does not exclude Great Britain. They're not part of the EU pet rules per se. So yes, to answer your question, you have to be on the same flight as your pet if you want a non-commercial 10-day certificate. Otherwise, you have to go to the vet 2 days before travel for a commercial certificate. And it's a bit challenging to get the USDA to endorse in time and for FedEx to get us the documents in time. But we've actually had pretty successful luck this summer after the rules change. There's a few things that we need to push dates back, but overall it's been working well. So it can be done. It's just the time restriction might be seen as a little difficult.
Yeah. For anyone that is like very, very new to pet travel, I know you've been with the company for 8 years. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what you mean by certificate?
Yeah, so pets need a health certificate to travel, whether domestic or internationally. Um, and basically, what it is the pet will go to the vet within the certain time frame. If you work with us, we'll tell you exactly when to go. The vet does a full exam to make sure the pet is fit to fly. There's no underlying issues that haven't already been addressed or no new issues that would affect them during travel. The microchips are always scanned, so that's very important. Microchips have to match across the boards on all health certificates and supporting documents, and then physically, the microchip is the pet's identifier at the vet and when they get to their final destination. So the health certificate is very important, and that's what pets need to travel with on their flight. And then the second step is that health certificate's endorsed by our Department of Agriculture, if you're a civilian. And then it has to be at the USDA for a certain amount of time. It depends on if it's a commercial certificate, which gets turned around quicker, or if it's a non-commercial certificate, you can expect it at the USDA for 3 to 5 days before it's sent out via, we provide FedEx labels, so it's either sent to us or the client, depending on the situation. Um, and if you are in military and are able to go to the military vet, that's a bit of a benefit because they're a government entity that can just sign off on the certificate, and we can avoid the USDA totally. So I think when it comes to those commercial moves with the tight turnaround, it's a huge benefit if you're military and able to go to a military vet.
Okay, thank you.
Might have been
Okay.
too long-winded for your question, but
No, I think the more context, the better is so helpful. It's such a niche industry with so many, you know, regulations and rules surrounding it. So,
yeah.
more context is always more helpful. Okay, we
Great.
have a question from Meg David. Good morning. I am planning to move 2 of my cats from California to Malaysia. The weather in Malaysia is hot and humid most of the year, above 85 degrees Fahrenheit. How does that work for temperature embargo?
Yeah, so we've actually not had issues with countries such as Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand that get extremely hot. And that's mostly because their facilities are equipped to handle the heat. Everything is air conditioning. The only point where a pet wouldn't be under air conditioning is when they're being offloaded from the plane and put in the air conditioned vehicle. Um, so that so that is a benefit. The issue we might face is there's an embargo on the airline side from a certain city, specifically for LA. Unless the temperatures are extreme, they don't embargo. Usually, we're fine out of LA, and for your purposes, we could certainly make a move work from LA to Kuala Lumpur. That should not be an issue. And then there is quarantine in Malaysia. It's a 7-day quarantine, and those are all air conditioning too. So that's actually a rather safe routing, specifically out of LA during the summer.
Perfect. So it seems like, I don't know, I guess like those warmer temp countries maybe, are more accustomed to handling heat, whereas like the US, where we have all 4 seasons, have different restrictions throughout the year.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Okay. Okay, Meg David again. What airlines do you use from LAX or Ontario and Southern California to Malaysia?
Yeah. So from LAX, we would typically use KLM flying through Amsterdam. That would be our preferred choice. There are different options. They might be a little bit more expensive, but yeah, currently KLM would be the way we would go.
Okay. Meg David, I hope that answers your question okay. Please let us know if you have any more. SP54. Looks like we're troubleshooting something with the giveaway form, but no problem there. Should be resolved. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Why can't my pet fly from the airport closest to me?
Yeah, that's a good question. Smaller airports, or even if it's considered a larger airport to you, doesn't necessarily mean they have the capabilities to ship pets. They have to have an animal air controlled room for each cargo facility to make sure the pets are safe before they actually go on to the flight. So if they don't have that, if they don't have the staff, if they don't have the proper training, um, and most importantly, if the airplane with animal friendly cargo area doesn't route through there, then it's just not going to happen. So the main hubs that we service are Dulles, Miami, Atlanta, Denver, JFK, Chicago, a few airports in Texas, Dallas, sometimes Austin and Houston, and then LA and San Francisco. Those are our main areas. Sometimes we can fly out of like Salt Lake City, for example, but it would have to be on, a specific routing. So we don't do it um, because it's our rule. It's that the airline simply doesn't have the capacity in most cases.
Hmm. Do you ever come across scenarios where, let's say, someone lives in like the Midwest, they're in Cincinnati, Ohio, they want to like move to Japan? Um, do they, typically fly out of LAX to Japan or like take a flight domestically to get to that airport? Like what are the
Yeah,
options there?
I would say typically it would be a ground transportation, either that we could provide or that the owner would do themselves. Probably Chicago O'Hare or Atlanta would be the closest. If it's a cat or a smaller dog, we can add on a domestic flight. That wouldn't be an issue. It's just a bit of an extra cost. So yeah, there's definitely options. Obviously, if we could ship out of every airport, we could. We're just out of our control in a lot of cases.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, thank you for that context. We have a question from Handmade Built. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, BYLT. In regards to heat embargoes, what temps do you typically see embargoes in place for Chicago?
It depends on the airline, but typically 85 degrees is the threshold. For Chicago, it might be 80 degrees depending on what airline. So I'd say between 80 and 85 degrees is when they won't fly pets.
Okay. SP54. We are going to Portugal. We have to sell our house prior to leaving, so timing is still up in the air. What does timing, how does timing work with Starwood?
Yeah, great question. Um, I always try to advocate for if you know that you're going to be moving, sign up with us, as soon as you can so we can work out any kinks. We kind of run into issues if we're signing up 3 weeks or so before you want to move because there's a lot involved and we have to get approvals on rabies certificates. There's customs forms, there's right sizing the kennel. Like Georgie said, we do ship a kennel measuring kit to you. So we want to make sure that's perfect. And then there's also the flight bookings. So flight booking windows typically open about 14 days prior to travel. It could be smaller for other airlines. So if we don't get in our booking requests at a certain time, then flights are full. So I would say for Portugal, we would appreciate something like 6 weeks would be enough time. Um, Even a little bit less, a little bit more. But it is specific for countries. Any island country like Australia, New Zealand, Singapore that might require quarantine, um, that's we're going to require more time for that because there's also some restrictions regarding like vaccine and blood testing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for Portugal specifically, like ideally between 5 to 6 weeks would be nice.
Yeah. And congratulations on your pending move to Portugal,
Yeah,
SP54.
I
Um,
think that's one of our hottest locations lately.
yeah.
Portugal and Spain have really picked up this year.
Yeah, it really has been. I know there's a lot of like flexibility, and I think some of the visa requirements for that location. Um, I believe someone on our team is possibly considering a move to Portugal as well. So maybe we can connect you guys on, information pet travel related and non-pet travel related on your
Yeah.
move. And one thing that just came to mind too is that we see some pet parents that like have to travel to their location or move there before their pet can make it there for whatever reason. So, that's also an option too. Like, if like the timing doesn't necessarily work out where you have to go there and you can't get your pet there at the same time, your pet can always travel after you. So just, keep that in mind. Obviously you want to be there with your family member as quickly as possible, but timelines can be adjusted around, work, visas, etc.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, question from Meg David. Do you book the tickets for the pets in advance or just 2 weeks prior? And is this because of the vet USDA certs?
So if we had our way, we would book the tickets as soon as the client gave us the date. But unfortunately, for most airlines, the booking window doesn't open until that 2 week period. Like I said, it might be 10 days for another airline, a little bit more for a different airline, but the average is about 14 days. So as soon as that window opens, we reach out for the booking. We'll reach out a few days previously. Most everything's done via email. It's very old school. We can't book online. We can't usually just call an agent and get something done quickly. It's all via email. So, for example, like our operations team will send an email a few days before that 14-day threshold. And then an airline will look at the date and they won't look at it, they won't open it, they won't get back to us until that 14 days has come. And even then, we might not hear from them for a few days just because they're working through so many moves. So the reasoning is it's a booking window that the airline puts in place.
Yeah. And that can be extremely frustrating, especially for someone that's trying to deal with a pet move all by themselves. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on? Am I doing something wrong? Why am I waiting for this ticket? Whereas,
Yeah.
you have the expertise and knowledge to know, like, okay, we've we've been through this before. There's a waiting period. We know we have to wait for a certain amount of time. So, yeah,
Right.
that's. Go ahead.
And then just to add on to that, with the new EU rules, when we find that there is someone that wants to be on the same flight or flights as their pets, that's a really high touch point for them because they have to worry about the expense of booking last minute. And so for all you out there, like, we apologize. We wish it was different. But the best thing to do is wait until we can confirm your pet's flight. If you're antsy about booking your own flight, we can kind of give you what we think they're going to book, and you can get trip insurance. That's what a lot of people do, so they can easily change their flight without the high fees. But yeah, that has come up a lot in the past month. So a heads up there if you are trying to travel with your pet. That's one of the reasons why people just decide not to, because of the high costs and just anticipating the wait time there.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Just searching for some new questions now. Also, we mentioned our kennel sizing kit that comes in the mail to all new Starwood customers. We also have a online calculator resource that you can use even before you book with us. So we'll be dropping that in the chat shortly. We also have a ton of other resources that are available to anybody that can sort of help you plan your pet's trip, and we'll be sharing those here shortly. Okay, this is a really big one that we get a lot. Can I give my pet gabapentin, which is a sedative of sorts?
Yeah, that's a good question. So medication like gabapentin and trazodone, it's widely prescribed by vets for things such as anxiety, sometimes it's joint pain. At the end of the day, the airlines will look at those as sedatives, and they do not allow pets to travel with them on top of the kennel, and they highly advise to not give them any categorical sedatives before travel, because you don't know how your pet internally might react to those medications at altitude. So it's a safety precaution too. But if your pet does need medication for pain, for dizziness, nausea, those are allowed if it's a specific medication, not just something related to anxiety. We just need to get a letter from your vet and approval from the airlines.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, essentially, we don't recommend anything that's a sedative because the airlines do not either.
Yeah, pet safety first. And I think there's other ways that you can help make your pet feel comfortable. A blanket that smells like you. I think the iced water trick you shared earlier can make them feel more comfortable. So there's certain things that you can do to make sure your pet stays safe, but also, as comfortable as possible during such a long travel.
Yeah, and I think going back to the kennels, what's key is kennel acclimation. So, if
Mm-hmm.
you're working with us, we always recommend waiting until you speak with myself or a coordinator before you purchase your kennel. Want to make sure it's the right size. But more importantly, getting the kennel early, like a month more in advance, is great because you can slowly adjust your pet to the kennel. A lot of people start with the door off and the top off, and then gradually build onto the top and the door, and feeding them in there, giving them water so they're used to drinking water from their bowls, and then building up to leaving for a couple hours doing an errand, just so the pet knows you're going to be there on the other side. And they're not just stuck there, because I think that causes a lot of the anxiety, like never being in a kennel. We find that with pets that aren't acclimated, um, it's a little more challenging for them to calm down.
Yeah, I'm just gonna send some love on the screen here because we want to make sure all pets are feeling cozy during their move. Okay, RD calligraphy. Is there additional charges if our flights change, though no fault of our own, and they are designated as commercial pets? We are traveling with 5 pets, and is there a max amount of pets per person?
Can you tell us where he's going? Because
Yeah, could
it
you?
does get a little specific.
Yeah, RD calligraphy, if you could drop that in the chat where your destination is. I know you corresponded earlier. I'm going to try to see if I can find if you mentioned that, but I don't know that you have. But we're happy to circle back to your question once you let us know where your destination is. But I guess a nice anecdote to share would be about um, a, a move to France, I believe. It was like 20 cats, something like that. Ryan, does that ring a bell?
So it was like 48 cats.
48 cats. Oh, wow.
Our
I was
lovely
only
friend
50 some percent
Cheryl.
off.
Yeah, so yeah, like I said, it depends on the airline and the destination. Some are limited to 3 pets per airway bill, which is like per flight. The commercial health certificate will allow up to 5 pets. So depending on where he goes, we can make that work. But just for an example, with these 48 cats, we broke it down into like 4 flights, multiple commercial certificates for each flight between 2 and 3, and they all got there within a couple weeks span. So if we can do something like that, I'm sure we can handle your needs. And then to answer your question, if the flight gets canceled, you're on a commercial certificate. That work does need to be redone, so the health certificate does need to be redone. Flights need to be rebooked. We're kind of stuck into a Monday vet appointment and a Wednesday flight, just with the new commercial rules. We do offer something called a pet protection plan, um, that can help you cost wise with that. It's a certain amount per pet, kind of depending on when you sign up. But we've found it saved people thousands of dollars when we take on those expenses and you pay for the trip insurance. Um, but yeah,
Okay.
we will walk you through redoing everything, or we'll do it ourselves depending on where you're at.
Okay. And RD calligraphy did get back to us. They are traveling from Seattle to the Netherlands.
Okay, yeah, so we would take Lufthansa. I believe with these new EU rules, they're limiting to 3 pets per airway bill, but we can ask Frankfurt, which is where Lufthansa's headquarters is, specifically for an exception. We've had some success doing that. Um, but yeah, that would be the routing we take. Try to get them all on the same flight on one health certificate, out of Seattle. It would just depend on if we get a special exception to have them all stay together, or if we had to break them up into 2 separate flights.
Okay. Thank you. Um, well, we wish you the best of luck and hope we can help you with your pet's move to the Netherlands. Handy Made Built has another question, and it does not have to be your last one, even though that's what they said in the chat. You can ask us as many as you'd like. For heat embargo temps, is it the air temp at time of departure? Are there flights that depart early in the morning or late at night for cooler temps?
Yeah, what we see usually in summer, and it's not for every hub, but they adjust flights to be later at night typically. Some airlines earlier in the morning, just so that we can be successful in getting pets out. Everything is based on the time of departure. So if we're checking in and it's 65 degrees, but a couple hours later it creeps up into the 80s, then that would be an issue. So it is at the time of departure. Um, and what was there another part to that question? Sorry.
Um,
Oh, early or later
yeah,
flights.
yeah, morning
Yeah,
or morning
they
day.
do try to do earlier or later flights, but it really just depends on the city you're flying out of.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, this is an interesting one. Can I put a cooling pad in my pet's crate?
Yeah, they do make airline friendly cooling pads. My only hesitation with that is if it's a dog, usually dogs the ones that rip up things. If it's a
Mm.
dog that's prone to chewing or ripping, I wouldn't recommend that just because of the material in the pad. But if it's just, chill dog, you don't have any reservations about behavior, that's totally fine. The only restrictions around pads are it needs to fit nicely in the kennel and it can't be thicker than 3 inches.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I know that airlines have certain restrictions around like, ounce requirements and certain bottles and just like other requirements. I didn't know if there was like maybe they were asking because there's a substance in the cooling pad that isn't compatible with travel. So you mentioned an airline compatible cooling pad. Is that a question that you get a lot, Ryan, or is this a new one?
No, not really. If you go on Amazon, you'll see, kind of approved pads. There's not currently any restrictions about like what's actually in the bedding, in terms of like cooling gels. I don't see anything like that being restricted by the airline, but it's more kind of just a choice an owner should make on if they're worried about their pet ripping up padding, because we see
Mm.
that every now and then. Like, please don't put something more than a towel inside because my pet will rip it up. But it is a rule that the pet has to be on something, whether a towel, a really thin mat if they're rippers. But like I said, the 3 inch thickness is their biggest rule.
Okay, thank you. Oh, we also just had JH Tube. I remember you from last time you were here. JH Tube dash ZG8HH. They won a t-shirt in our last AMA. Thank you for coming back. We are so happy to have you here. I also just had a celebrity join me.
Oh,
This is my cat Lavender. He's a
oh, what
male
a
cat
name.
named Lavender. He's my best buddy and my best coworker.
Oh,
He's going in his
Lavender.
little cat bed right now. All
Well,
right. Well,
Slate is kind of sleeping and says hello.
yes, we love our coworkers, cat
Yes.
workers, dog workers. He has a little bed that attaches to my desk. All right, well, we're starting to slow down on the questions. Just got a new one now. Thank you for this live chat. My travel plans are next year by May or September. Do I contact Starwood now or wait 6 months before April? I'm happy to give an initial response to this question. It's never too soon to submit your quote request. We can always revise it later if your travel date changes, but at least we can give you an initial quote so you have some sort of budgeting plan in mind. You can also start paying monthly towards that quote, which is really helpful. And yeah, Ryan, anything to add there?
No, that's a perfect response. And like I was talking about earlier, it is destination based, what I would recommend. But Georgie's correct. You never want to just sit and wait because you want to have a baseline for your budget. You want to keep in mind what vaccinations might be needed for that certain country because there might be a longer wait time than you anticipate. So yeah, we're happy to give you a quote, walk you through any initial questions so you can make an informed decision on when you want to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as I mentioned, we can always revise it if your travel plans change, whether it's timing or even country. We can
Mhm.
always give you a fresh quote. All right. Well, I encourage you to drop your questions in the chat. We're starting to slow down a little bit. Um, we're happy to just kind of like discuss here a little bit more about summer pet travel. If anybody has anything residual to ask. So Ryan, I'll ask you like, when it comes to summer pet travel, what are some of the top things that come to mind? I know we've talked about embargoes and, you know, other sorts of things that come up that are sort of out of our control, but anything else that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think it's just for us, it's all about safety and, answering our clients' questions because they're very, worried about their pets. So we try and be as transparent as we can and as honest as we can as if, we think this is a good time for your pet to travel or we'd recommend waiting a bit or maybe drive up to San Francisco. It's going to be a little cooler there. So we're very open to giving our suggestions and our honest thoughts based on what we've experienced in summers past. I think when I think of summer, everyone thinks, oh, happy, let's go on vacation. But I think,
Mm-hmm.
when are these embargoes going to hit? I'm worried about this client going there. So we're very, very much on top of it. I will say, like, just so people traveling in summer know, I would recommend being flexible with your own travel, planning ahead, and having a backup pet sitter in case the move gets pushed forward because of temperature delays or USDA delays. So, and we'll try to walk you through any backup plans. We always have contingency plans too, but
Mm-hmm.
obviously we want your pet to, rather than being in a boarding facility, be with a family or a friend. It helps kind of make the situation a lot calmer because you know where your pet is at. Um, but yeah, the biggest thing is safety. That's why we put in our internal embargoes for snubs. We don't ever want to have a safety incident or medical incident. Um, and yeah, just keeping your pet cool with the water tricks we talked about. I would say grooming your pet might be a good idea if they're a fluffy one like a husky. I just got my husky groomed and like 18 pounds of hair came off, and I was
Oh
like, wow,
wow.
if I didn't do this, it would be so hot. But I've never
Yeah.
even got him groomed, so I'm finally becoming a clean pet parent. Um, yeah, because if when you think about it, that pavement is very warm on their paws. Their coat feels like a winter jacket. They can't sweat, so you really want to think about how your animal feels and when they're in actual heat, and then think about how they're going to handle it. We and the airlines do everything we can to mitigate it. So it's just those 10 or 15 minutes when pets are loaded um, that determines, if it's a good day to travel or not. And that's something that like the ground agent or the cargo manager makes that call. So yeah, our focus is always just safety during the summer months and trying to be as communicative with our clientele as possible on what we expect to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are great tips. Especially the grooming one. I feel like that's something that seems like it would be top of mind, but easily overlooked. I have a
Yeah,
I have a long-haired cat. You have a husky. They both shed in the summer, but it's not necessarily enough all the time. So,
right.
wow, yeah, good tip. Okay. Oh, we got a question on Facebook. Um, I'm moving with the military. I have 3 animals total, one of which needs to go cargo. How would you recommend the best way to navigate moving to the EU with 3 animals? One in cargo, two in cabin.
Um, yeah, that's a good question. We do have, a handful of clients that come to us with that exact situation. So I'll take out the commercial, non-commercial of it all. But they'll typically work through us for all the paperwork. So we would advise on the pet and cargo and the two in cabin on all the paperwork that's needed. We help with the health certificates, drafting them out because they are two different certificates for cabin and cargo. We work with your vet directly on that. And then we book the cargo flight. So anything in cabin, an owner would have to handle all the ticketing for that. But in cargo, we would handle that. I would say if you want to, this would be a good instance where you could do a non-commercial certificate and go all on the same flight at the same time. Um, and then that way that certificate's valid 10 days. It would be a case where I'd recommend getting our trip insurance in case for some reason you and the two smaller animals can go, but the cargo pet can't go for temperatures, for example. So I would say it can all be done. You might want an extra hand at the airport. So it'll be a lot. But usually the rules are like one pet per person in cabin. So I would assume they're traveling with a partner or a friend. And so we would, if you went with us or another pet shipper, we'd meet you at the airport, handle the larger animals, check in, assuming on the same flight. And then we would handle the customs for the larger animal while you would do the customs for the smaller animals, which is rather easy from what I've heard. Sorry, I think my thing timed out. The point being, we could handle it for you. We could walk you through it. If you have any specific questions, we can answer that too. But it is quite possible.
Okay, thank you for that. So we are starting to wrap up our live Q&A. We will be announcing giveaways after the event. So if you haven't already, please fill out the form in the chat. And, also if you'd like to have us host any other AMA or Ask Me Anything topics next month, we do host these every single month. So feel free to share that in the chat as well. And if you're not on our email list, you can submit a quote request or a newsletter blog submission, so that way you're in our database and we can notify you about these events every month that they come out. Thank you so much for joining, and we really wish everyone all the best in their future pet travels, and we really hope to see you at our next live event. Thank you all so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, everyone.